Hello, and thank you for checking out Castillo Heritage Crafts. Today we got 4 free patterns for you. They're pretty simple to make, and they're all kinda on-the-go projects that'll help carry your everyday things around. So, let's begin. Starting off here by printing out the patterns. In the description of this video, I'll have a link to a Dropbox account where you can download the patterns for free. So let me know if you have any trouble with that. Dropbox accounts are free, so if you don't have one, I don't even know if you need to really make an account, but you can just download it for free. There should be nothing that you have to pay for. So here I'm just cutting out all the patterns. Whether you're doing all of them or just some of them, doesn't matter what order you cut them in, just cut them out. Make sure you keep the pieces that belong together, and in just a bit we'll get into each project individually. For basically every piece in this project, I'll be using about 1.5 millimeter vegetable tan leather, except for just 2 pieces of the last project, so I'll make sure to let you know when that is. And again, in no particular order, just like the patterns, I'm going to make sure I cut out all my leather pieces so they're ready to go. Whether you're making all of them or just one of them, only cut out the pieces you need. I'm also marking and punching out all the various holes that are in the patterns too, just to have that out of the way and done. If you're a beginner and you see me using a tool that you don't have, that's alright. All of this can be done by hand. Now the last project of the day that I'll show you later on is a phone sling, and I mention that because I use, as you see, thinner leather, a little bit less than a millimeter for the card pockets. If you don't have a thinner leather that you can use for the card pockets, that's alright. You can use what you have. I just prefer to make card pockets a little thinner. Okay, there's every piece cut out for all 4 of our projects. And if you're using vegetable tan leather like me, you may want to dye it. Here I've given each piece a little bit of a sunburst effect. Now here I'm using a spare piece of leather to show you the edge work that I'm doing for each of these projects. Dyeing and edge work are completely optional, and so I haven't actually included them in the instructions. Alright, so let's get into it. Project 1 is a key slip. On the pattern, there are markings to show where the stitch lines will go, so here I am using my... On each pattern, you'll see where stitch lines should be marked, and I'm marking those now using my wing divider. I like to mark and punch each piece individually before I glue them and stitch them together, but it's totally up to you if you'd rather glue them first and then punch through everything all at once. I just feel like it looks a little bit more clean. So for all these projects I'm using 3mm stitching chisels. It's not that I sized the pattern specifically for 3mm stitching chisels, it's just what I'm using. And you can feel free to use whatever size you have on hand. Also, when necessary, for each of these projects I'll be using this water-based contact cement. Again, it's just what I prefer. You can use what you have on hand, but I do recommend contact cement if you can. But also, double-sided tape works well. I'll show you how to use that later. Also for each project today, it's best to use some sort of synthetic waxed thread and employ a double needle saddle stitch. I don't yet have a saddle stitch tutorial on my channel, but there are plenty of them out there, and if you're looking for a deep dive, I recommend checking out Nigel Armitage's videos. Here you see me using a bone folder to release any residual glue from the inside before I sand down the edges and dye them. Now I'll apply some Tokonol onto the sides and use the edge slicker to get things nice and shiny. Now this next part is the trickiest bit. The string could be as long as you want, but I recommend nothing less than 14 inches or about 35 centimeters. So you can see how I'm attaching the split ring just by making a little loop and pulling the rest of the string through. You see that I had a knot at the end there, but I actually had to untie it so I can slip it through the hole on the key slip and I retie it again. To avoid any trouble, you could also just slip the string through the keyhole before you actually stitch up the project. And that's project number 1 done. If you're someone who likes to keep your keys in your pocket, or maybe you use a handbag and you have valuables you don't want to get scratched, this helps prevent that. And now on to project number 2, a knife slip with a belt loop attachment. I start by layering the pattern on top of the piece to mark where the stitch lines should begin and end. And I'll mark the other stitch lines on the remaining pieces as well before I punch the stitching holes. And if you're going to use edge dye like me, I'm going to dye the 2 shorter ends on the squarish piece. And I'm using my rougher here to rough up the edges to make sure the glue holds well, but you can also use an awl. Now I'm pointing here at all the edges where I'll be applying glue before sticking everything together. And again, since I am punching everything individually, we have to make sure that the stitch holes line up. So I use this needle technique here, and I'm going in on not the first, but the second hole on each end, and just using the needle to make sure everything is lined up well before pressing it all together. I'm also leaving the needles in so I can attach the belt loop here on the back side and ensure that that lines up as well. And once it's all pressed together, you can remove the needles and start stitching. And again, if you are less concerned with aesthetics than I am, then you can just glue all the pieces together and then punch through everything all at once. I just prefer to do it this way. And with these edges dyed, the knife slip is complete. You can attach it to your belt or use it as a pocket slip. The knife I'm using here is a little long on one end, but other knives should fit much better. Now on to project 3, a sunglasses case. This one's simple to put together. You can see I've already marked and started punching the outer piece. And here I am marking where the ends of the belt loop stitch lines will be. Then I'll just punch straight across those 2 lines and along the bottom edge as shown by the pattern. Now I'm going to punch the edges of the belt loop as well. And I'm going to finish all the edges. You don't necessarily have to finish the top edge because you won't be seeing it. The belt loop will have a curve at the top, so you'll want to flip it upside down and stitch it up that way on the top row, and then bend it downward and stitch it into the bottom row. Now this is optional, but I'm attaching an eyelet to the body piece so that you can attach maybe a split ring to it if you wanted to. And here I'm just setting the female end of the button snap. Before stitching things together, I have finished and dyed the top edge of this outer piece here. And here I'm pointing to the areas where I have applied glue. I did things slightly out of order here, but I am now applying the male end of the button snap. Preferably you do this before you apply the glue. And again, I'm using that needle technique on not the first, but the second hole. I am inserting the needle, making sure everything lines up, and you can insert as many needles as you want to make sure the holes are lining up along the way. After that, you can go ahead and stitch everything up. And there you have it. Project 3 is complete. It's a nice glasses case. Again, you can use it as a belt loop, or using that eyelet on the edge there, you can attach a split ring, maybe use it as a keychain, attach it to a backpack or something. Pretty sweet. Now on to project 4, the most complex project. That would be the phone sling. First, I'm going to finish the edges of this tiny key loop here. And we'll need a few pieces of hardware for this one. First, we'll need this pop rivet here, or a double-sided rivet, and a small D-ring. I'm inserting this small piece of leather through the D-ring and attaching it to the main body piece using the double-capped rivet. Now again, I'm layering the pattern on top of these pieces here, and I'm marking very lightly where the corners of the card slots should line up before I attach them. I'll be doing that for both pieces. And for the card slots, I'm finishing all 4 edges before I attach them, because it'll be difficult to do so later when they're so flush against the body. So here, instead of glue, you can see the example. I use some thin double-sided tape to attach the card pockets instead. And that holds in place just fine while I mark and punch the stitching holes. And now I'm marking all the stitch lines I'll be needing for this project on both the card slots and on the main body pieces. I'm using 2 sets of eyelets for this project, maybe they're a little smaller than a centimeter, and attaching them to both corners. Now we're ready to start stitching things up, starting with the card pockets. To keep things simple for the strap, I'm using this thick braided leather string and inserting it through the inside of the eyelets and tying a knot. And there you have it. This project's complete. The phone I'm using here is a Galaxy S23 with a case on it too. Fits perfect. And there we have it. That's all 4 projects complete. Got the phone sling, sunglasses case, knife slip, and the key slip. They're super simple, fun to make, and especially if you use pre-dyed leather, you can get each of these projects finished in about an hour or so, probably even less. Again, you can find the download link for the free patterns in the description below. And as a bonus, here is a magic wallet I made in a previous video. You can see the paper there is on the left behind the 2 straps. Flip it over, it's behind the 1. How does he do it? You can check out that video, the top right link there, and see the pattern for that as well. So, what'd you think of these projects? Let me know in a comment below. Also, like and share the video, subscribe, and tap the bell. Thanks for watching.